The Hermit Kingdom hides more than secrets. It's a land of contradictions. North Korea has been sealed off for decades, its people living under strict control over what they watch, say, and do. Yet behind the curtain lies a darker side of the regime, one full of excess, debauchery, and indulgence. It's a world ordinary North Koreans will never see. So what really goes on? On today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're stepping into North Korea's secret party world. Kang Jin used to be a high-ranking guard in Unit 974, the infamous bodyguard unit tasked with protecting North Korea's elites. For 13 years, he lived in the shadow of Kim Jong-il, the former supreme leader and father of North Korea's current ruler, Kim Jong-un. Kang Jin saw everything in a job that few North Koreans could ever dream of. It was a job that took men away from their families and demanded a lifetime of loyalty, one that literally asked them to be meat shields for their bosses. Yet Jin defected. He got out, giving the world a rare look behind North Korea's closed doors. Ordinary North Koreans believed their supreme leader and his acolytes sacrificed everything for the nation, working tirelessly around the clock. But the truth was very different. Jin explained that Kim Jong-il spent much of his time in sprawling villas, luxurious compounds stocked with fine liquor, imported cigarettes, and women. Sometimes he could be found aboard his private yacht surrounded by companions, or at his stables where he and his mistresses paraded on white horses. When it was time for a party, Jin stood watch outside of a building known as the Center, as the luxury cars of North Korea's elite rolled into the lot. By around 10 p.m., the celebrations would begin. 3, maybe 4 men would enter the villa with Kim. The music started, the drinks flowed, but the real attraction wasn't the alcohol, it was the women. Sometimes dozens for just a handful of men. Many trained for this very role. It was all top secret. What happened at those parties stayed at those parties. In North Korea, breaking that rule could mean the difference between a family living in comfort in the city or being condemned to hard labor in the countryside. Jin's story corroborates previous reports about North Korea's so-called pleasure girls, estimated at around 2,000 strong. The Kipumjo, or the pleasure group, had specialized functions. Defectors describe women sorted into 3 different teams: the satisfaction team for personal services, the happiness team for massage, and the dancing and singing team for performance and entertainment. A declassified document, partly titled "The Project to Guarantee Longevity of the Great Leader," details how female recruits were selected and trained. Each party chief was responsible for assembling a pleasure team, tasked with selecting the women. If the girls were fortunate enough to make it to the top 100, their names were sent to Section 5 of the Organization Department, aka the Inner Circle. The top 50 names, consisting of the most beautiful females in the country, then landed on the desk of the Supreme Leader's bodyguards, with the final selection being made by himself. All the girls were medically tested. If they passed, they underwent intensive training. After this, the girls were placed into one of 33 luxury villas scattered across North Korea, called from modest homes to entertain visiting VIPs. Some were sent overseas for additional instruction. A select few were elevated to the rank of first lieutenant in the bodyguard unit, possibly to supervise other girls, the newbies. One girl, Mi Hyung, was still a teenager when she was pulled from school. After defecting, she described the moment 2 men in green uniforms stormed her classroom and dragged her away without warning. She happened to meet the criteria: at least 5 foot 5 inches tall, no scars or blemishes, a soft, feminine voice, and a virgin. Her educational background and family history were scrutinized. She was asked if she ever had a serious boyfriend that she had been intimate with. She spent the next 10 years servicing Kim Jong-il. During that time, she had no contact with her family. If she tried to run, she knew being caught meant execution. She described the training as rigorous, mostly dancing, massage, and learning how to address North Korean nobility. After passing, she was first made to entertain in the traditional ways, singing, dancing, and giving massages, nothing more. But she believed that had she stayed longer, she would eventually have been forced into more. Lee Il-nam, a nephew of Kim Jong-il, also wrote about the parties in his memoirs. He described them as booze-filled orgies with women usually aged between 22 and 25. The men drank heavily, playing games where losers stripped off their clothing. Lavish meals were served, and what began with singing and dancing often ended in sexual activities. But these parties weren't just for anyone. Il-nam said that of his 200 or so associates, only 40 men could attend, men of the highest ranks. It seems that some of them felt guilty or were worried the truth would get out. Their shame often translated into sending gifts to the girls, sometimes as much as $4,000, a small fortune in North Korea. According to Il-nam, a few girls married the VIPs. Most weren't so lucky. They went home when their service ended, sworn to secrecy on the pain of death. $4,000 really is a fortune in North Korea, enough to give a woman and her parents a fairly comfortable life. In 2022, a news website focused on North Korea reported that it was not uncommon for people to earn just 5,000 North Korean won a month. That's about $1 to $3 at the black market exchange rate, barely enough to cover staples such as rice or corn. Those are the lowest wages. If you have a good education and live in Pyongyang, wages are much higher than elsewhere, especially after 2023's Resolution 23101-9, which increased salaries nationwide for many jobs. News outlets reported dramatic jumps in pay. Workers earning 1,500 won suddenly earned more than 30,000, around $9 on the black market. Mid-level managers saw salaries leap from 5,000 to 7,000 to as high as 120,000. Even teachers once making just 2,000 a month now earned 120,000. At the top, party secretaries pulled in 150,000 won. Citizens aren't allowed to hold US dollars, and with no official exchange, they rely on the black market at terrible rates. On paper, 150,000 won might look like $166, but in reality, through underground dealers, it would be much less on the streets. So while average North Koreans are technically earning more these days, those at the bottom can still barely afford to eat. Even those who received wage increases remain desperately poor on a global scale. According to PayLab, average monthly wages vary across developing nations. In places like Ethiopia and Congo, wages average $60 to $100 a month. In Indonesia, it's just $25. But in North Korea, the minimum may be less than $10. And that is before the black market exchange, where US dollars are essential for many transactions. The regime condemns America, but the greenback remains its favorite currency. Still, even with such low pay, the regime has made occasional gestures to appear more humane. After a string of accidents in steel mills, the government recently mandated that shifts could not exceed 8 hours a day. Kim Jong-un himself reportedly lamented that the people in front of the machines are being treated like machines. He even said he wanted public holidays so that workers could enjoy their lives. But that's what he says to the people. It's hard to know how much things have actually progressed. He is under pressure to make changes in a country that seems to be opening its eyes to reality. North Koreans survive however they can. Many sell goods on the black market, DVDs, CDs, or USB drives full of foreign movies. Those are all banned, what Kim Jong-un once called a cancer on North Korean society. The reason is simple: propaganda. The regime insists the country is a paradise, so its citizens cannot be allowed to glimpse what the outside world really looks like. And despite all of the risks, people continue to smuggle and sell banned media. Punishments can be brutal. Selling contraband has led to mass executions, sometimes in stadiums with families forced to watch. In 2019, the BBC cited research showing there had been decades of killings for offenses ranging from stealing a cow to watching South Korean TV. Video evidence even showed crowds of up to 1,000 people gathered for public executions in fields, sporting grounds, and schools. The message was clear: breaking the law will not be tolerated. Jin, the former bodyguard, recalled a common saying in North Korea: "Only the dead remain silent." He recalled his time at the villas when his boss was with his pleasure girls. Guards would shoot men or women who strayed too close to the gardens, foraging in the so-called special zone. Shoot one and it could mean a promotion. These bodyguards were meant to be the cream of the crop: smart, strong, and above all trustworthy. They stayed silent, they never asked questions, and they were strictly forbidden from speaking to the pleasure girls. At most, they caught fleeting glimpses of them or brushed past their private tutors. They weren't allowed inside the parties, they only heard the music from outside, delivering alcohol and cigarettes before returning to their posts on watch. Jin was 31 when he finally left the service of the supreme leader. That was all he had known since he was 17. He was sworn to secrecy, but when he returned to normal society and he saw the TV and newspapers praising the leader's tireless devotion, it didn't sit well with him. How could it after what he had seen? It was all a lie, and he was forced to keep it to himself. One day he saw a dead body at a train station. No one moved it. For 3 days it lay there rotting as people looked away. Jin, from a family of soldiers, what he called true loyalists, felt sick as the image of that corpse clashed with the memories of Kim and his cronies living in luxury. And then, like so many others, he became hungry. Despite once serving at the highest levels, he survived on thin porridge. When the porridge ran out, he simply didn't eat. He had no children to care for him in old age. His wife had already died of tuberculosis. Once their service ended, guards were usually rewarded with a university education and a decent career. Jin applied for the state security department and was close to being accepted until he was suddenly disqualified without explanation. Later, he learned that he had a distant aunt, a woman he had never met, who had defected to South Korea years earlier. When they had first vetted him, they hadn't looked hard enough. He had tried all his life to be loyal, but hungry and broke, he realized the regime had abandoned him. The brainwashing, as he put it, began to crack, and disillusionment turned into rage. Eventually, he managed to track down that aunt in South Korea and began secretly communicating with her. She sent him $1,500, which allowed him to live comfortably, but with one condition: he became a broker between defectors in the South and their families still trapped in the North. It was a dangerous job, and he was almost discovered. So on a bitter winter's day, he crossed the Amnok River into China and never looked back. That was many years ago. The world he left behind has drastically changed. There's less starvation now and better wages, but with modernity, the younger generation is demanding more transparency. This is giving the regime a migraine and resulting in frightening crackdowns by security services. Unlike in Jin's time, North Koreans today have greater chances to glimpse the outside world through digital technology. The internet remains heavily censored, and it's only available to a chosen few. Normal people can only look at approved websites, while the state media is nothing but propaganda about the great achievements of the leadership. But even in North Korea, reality slips under the locked doors meant to keep the rest of the world out. Recently, police in Pyongyang had to make several arrests after discovering that high school students were secretly making online payments. The state media declared that these payments were having a non-socialist impact on teens. The students weren't shopping on foreign platforms, they were just spending on markets, arcades, or food. But the sight of teenagers flashing digital money while so many lived in poverty clashed with the regime's claim that everyone is equal. Parents pushed back, arguing the world was changing, that young people wanted freedom, and suppressing it would only spark rebellion. News reports said that changes are mostly coming from China, which might want North Korea to join modern civilization. China is where most of the electronic goods come from, where the USBs full of music, TV shows, and movies are made. It turns a blind eye to those factories and shops, while smugglers on the North Korean side risk their lives daily. Change is creeping in. An anonymous source said constant crackdowns can't keep up, as devices keep flowing in through hidden channels. Worse for the regime, people now know that the families of security officers and inspectors use these devices more than anyone else. So, the regime is now worried about social upheaval. In May 2025, police were ordered to seek out foreign nationals or outsiders, non-socialist elements, or signs of illegal business activities. The people were not happy about the police entering their homes and rooting through their belongings. One of the main reasons for the surveillance was to find people who had luxuries far beyond what their jobs paid them. Money coming from underground activities that the regime says create instability. Unlike the regime and its top cadres, regular people aren't supposed to make money outside of the job they've been handed. 20 years ago, such words were not spoken. North Koreans rarely questioned the government's narratives. Westerners might still believe all North Koreans live in a vacuum of propaganda and remain ignorant. But it's not the case these days. As another anonymous North Korean civilian noted, many people now question it when they're told to live in a, quote, socialist paradise where everyone is equal. It couldn't be more unequal. With a GDP of just $32 billion, North Korea is not a rich country, one of the lowest in the world per capita, only above Yemen, Afghanistan, and some African nations. The government dictates what goods can be produced, how much should be made, and then it sets the price. It still controls nearly the entire economy, but since the 21st century it has eased up, opening up trade with China worth about $3.25 billion. That trade has helped prevent disasters like the famine of the late 1990s, which killed an estimated 500 to 600,000 people. But there's a darker economy, one that regular people take nothing from at all. The regime bans its citizens from earning on the black market, yet it secretly trains hackers, blamed for a $1.5 billion crypto heist in Dubai in 2025. The US and UK say that North Korea is behind some of the world's most expensive hacks. Reports also point to phone scams worth around $600 million a year, and according to South Korean intelligence, the country runs thousands of illegal gambling sites valued in the billions. Western media often points to Room 39, a secretive North Korean organization that sends workers abroad to funnel cash back to the regime. Its alleged activities include counterfeiting currency, arms smuggling, narcotics trafficking, and operating shady casinos in Southeast Asia, mainly in Cambodia. So while many regular North Koreans subsist on porridge or risk being industrious, the elites rake in fortunes like organized crime syndicates. That's how high-ranking officials and their families can shop at Hermes, Hennessy, Mercedes-Maybach, and buy fancy European watches. The Kim dynasty lives in a completely different universe from ordinary citizens. Kim Jong-il reportedly spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a year importing Hennessy cognac and kept a private library of more than 20,000 films. He claimed to hate America, but he loved Hollywood. His favorites included westerns, Sean Connery, and even Friday the 13th. His son owns a fleet of luxury cars smuggled in despite UN sanctions. One is valued at about $200,000. Another, a custom-made Mercedes-Maybach S600 Pullman Guard, is estimated to cost between $500,000 and $1.6 million. He's said to have 4 yachts, including one valued at between $4 and $6 million. His personal plane, a Soviet-era Ilyushin Il-62, may not turn heads among billionaires, but reports say it's been retrofitted with luxury interiors. Satellite images have revealed Kim's sprawling seaside mansion in Wonsan, complete with a private water park and horse riding facilities. The family said to own 17 palaces and countless villas equipped with state-of-the-art electronics and designer furniture. One even has its own 1,600-foot airstrip. The family had 12 train stations built just for them. On board their luxury trains, reports say they dined on haute cuisine from around the world, washed down with French wine and Cristal champagne. Despite those sanctions, they've repeatedly been caught importing luxury goods worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They're often seen flaunting them too. In 2024, Kim's sister Kim Yo-jong was photographed in Russia carrying a Christian Dior purse valued at $7,500. Insiders who serve the regime well are sometimes rewarded with luxury cars or watches worth tens of thousands. In reality, sanctions hurt ordinary people, not the elites. A 2013 report estimated the Kim family's net worth at about $5 billion, a sixth of the present GDP. Much of this wealth isn't in official accounts, it's hidden overseas. North Korea is said to have secret bank accounts in Austria, China, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Russia, Singapore, and of course Switzerland. In 2016, The Guardian reported that a British banker had helped North Korean elites set up offshore accounts, even though those accounts were tied to arms trafficking. The U.S. has also accused British offshore firms of dealing with Pyongyang. In the world of shady finance, offshore empires rarely ask questions. But change is brewing in North Korea. Reality is slowly washing over the population, leaving behind a grim truth. The elites may bribe the girls with small fortunes, but they cannot bribe an entire nation. While the elite's secret parties would shock the nation, they are nothing compared to everyday life. Watch weird things that only exist in North Korea to see just how bizarre it really is, or click on this video instead.